a special tribute to two distinguished sons of Kano, whose contributions to education and intellectual life deserve our highest commendation. First, His Excellency Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, whose visionary leadership in 2012 led to the establishment of this great institution, the Northwest University Kano. At a time when many of his colleagues in government looked away from the crisis in access to higher education, he chose to look forward with foresight and courage. He understood that a prosperous future could not be built on abundant youth who shattered classrooms. For him, the founding of this university was not just a political decision. It was a moral act, a bold investment in human capital and the intellectual empowerment of future generations. For this enduring legacy, I am confident that history will remember him very kindly. Secondly, and finally, I wish to salute His Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II, the Emir of Kano and spiritual leader of the Tijaniya order, His Highness of tradition and intellect, a custodian of deep Islamic scholarship, and a modern thinker committed to reform, justice, and public enlightenment. He has remained a consistent voice of reason, conscience, and vision in our national discourse. It is also profoundly fitting and actually forces intellectual authority in the service of society and the service of social renewal. May his example who seek to unite with intellectual excellence. Now to the lecture. Education in northern Nigeria today sits at the crossroads of a deep crisis and a possible renaissance. The challenges of violence, poverty, ignorance, displacement, decaying infrastructure, and systemic underinvestment are daily reality for millions of our children. It is in fact that my lecture, which will attempt to offer a preliminary diagnosis of these structural challenges and propose a tentative roadmap for tackling some of the problems, is taking place in this hallowed hall of the Northwest University Kano. In barely one decade, just a little over one decade, this university has grown steadily, expanding its academic program, attracting distinguished academic and administrative staff, nurturing a generation of young minds eager to contribute to society. With over 17,000 students and about 1,500 teaching and non-teaching staff, the university has become an important player in Nigeria's higher education, where the educational terrain is often marked by neglect and corruption. Northwest University stands not only as a tribute to foresight, but also a call to action, reminding us all that the North must educate its people in order to liberate them, and the North must educate its people in order to secure them. empower them to thrive in a new competitive world order. Today's convocation, therefore, is a moment of celebration and reflection. A moment when both can walk hand in hand in one direction. It is a time of joy, marking the achievements of our graduates and the phenomenal growth of this young but ambitious institution. It is also a moment of sober reflection, a time to look beyond the confines of the university and confront the stark realities present upon our region. Realities that we must collectively resolve to defeat before they collectively resolve to defeat us. Madam Chairman, Your Excellency, Your Highness, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are assembled here in a context shaped not only by academic aspiration, but by existential uncertainty. In too many parts of northern Nigeria, in the recent past, the sound of gunfire was replacing the ring of school bells. Classrooms stood empty, where once they overflowed with eager young minds. Thousands of children roamed the streets of our towns and cities as beggars or took refuge in camps for the displaced. Entire communities have been upended by violent conflicts, while schools, which ought to be sanctuary of a gun, have become targets of fear and disruption. Yet, amid these harsh realities, we must hold firm to a simple truth, that education remains our last and best hope for recovery from conflicts. The crisis we face today is not merely about the violence or poverty. It is about the cynicism towards the past. Instead, we are called to rethink our assumptions, align our strategies, and recommit to education, both a human right, a national duty, and the best way of changing the world for the better phase and beyond. Since the jihad, Kano has remained an important intellectual center of scholarship in northern Nigeria. Century, for example, prominent scholars such as Sheikh Musi Salga, Sheikh Nasir Kabara, Sheikh Abubakar Atiku, Sheikh Idris Usman Zangon Bari, Sheikh Mehula, and Sheikh Sani Kapinga play critical roles in shaping Islamic jurisprudence, theology, and mysticism, especially through the Qadriya and Tijaniya order. They also help to establish vibrant educational traditions that combine the memorization of the Quran with deep exegesis, logic, grammar, rhetoric, law, and governance ethics. But even under colonial rule, Islamic education in Kano remained resilient. When the British introduced Western-style schooling in the early 20th century, the city's Islamic institutions adapted creatively, with some resistance and others negotiating space for coexistence. By the post-independence era, however, Kano has evolved into a city where traditional Islamic scholarship and modern formal education intersected, though often and easily. Apart from the phenomenal increase in the number of schools and colleges by government and private sector, more Islamic learning centers, both formal and non-formal, also sprang up across Kano and beyond. An important development characterizing the modern Islamic policy in post-colonial Kano, especially in the last 30 to 40 years, is the return of the mosque as a vital center for Islamic learning and education, playing a crucial role in the dissemination of knowledge and the development of Islamic culture. And like the prominent Islamic scholars mentioned above, who operated from their homes, contemporary modern Muslim scholars in Kano use the mosque as venues for their teaching of the Quran, Hadith, fiqh, and other Islamic sciences. For these modern scholars, mosques are not merely places of worship, but also hubs for teaching, discussion, and the preservation of Islamic tradition. In essence, the mosque role as a center of learning is deeply rooted in Islamic tradition, dating back to the Prophet's mosque in Medina, which functioned as a center for teaching, social activities, and governance. Many of these modern Islamic scholars in Kano studied in universities in Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the Sudan, and Nigeria. Many of them are university professors, businessmen, technocrats, and entrepreneurs. Prominent among them are scholars like the late Jafar Adam, the late Dr. Ahmad Ibrahim Bamba, the late Dr. Aminuddin Abubakar, Sheikh Ibrahim Khalil, Professor Bashir Aliyu, Professor Muhammad Salih Ilmu, and many other respected scholars, too numerous to be mentioned in this paper. The important point here I am making is that any attempt to design a roadmap for revitalizing education in northern Nigeria, particularly in the Muslim-dominated area, must factor in this laudable legacy of higher learning in Kano and in other cities in the northern states. Madam Chairman, I will just skip the next section, just a conceptual clarification on the two key concepts of my paper: education, or what I call miseducation, because there is education and there is miseducation, and we confuse both. While we pretend to be doing one, but actually we are doing the other. Sometimes we pretend to be educating when we are miseducating. So education and insecurity, I have given a clarification on what education is and what insecurity is in this paper. But then I say the relationship between miseducation and insecurity is both causal and cyclical. Insecurity disrupts education. Schools are destroyed. Teachers flee. Students drop out. And poverty is multiplied many-fold. Conversely, the absence of meaningful education fuels insecurity. Young people without hope or skills are easily recruited into extremist, criminal, or subversive movements, including political sectarianism. Therefore, rethinking education in the face of insecurity means designing an educational system that is resilient in times of crisis, realities of learners, and robust enough to serve as a foundation for peace, prosperity, and national cohesion. This will require a concerted effort by understanding clear in section 3 in the previous section. Education in northern Nigeria will not begin with chalk and blackboard. nor was it born in colonial classrooms. Long before the British drew borders or built schools, this region had established itself as a vibrant center of learning and spiritual inquiry. At the heart of this legacy stood the Sokoto Caliphate, a unique fusion of intellectual sophistication and political organization inspired by the reformist vision and scholarly writings of Sheikh Usman Kampodio, his brother Abdullahi, his son Muhammad Bello, and his daughter Nana Asmau. The advent of colonialism brought disruption to the kind of education we were used to. Western education was introduced as a tool of administration, often dismissive of indigenous knowledge system. The result was a fractured educational landscape, a dualism between the modern and the traditional, with little effort at synthesis. For independent government, despite noble efforts, largely failed to heal this drift. The neglect of Islamic education by policy and the inadequacy of modern schooling by